What do we humans most want? We say we want to be happy. Maybe we want to accumulate a lot of money for eventualities. Maybe we want to try and work through traumas in our past. Maybe we just want never-ending pleasures. Maybe we want what's called security, whatever that might mean to each of us. Others might claim they want to live forever, as per eternal life. Others might say they want serenity here and now, and that after death, that's something they don't concern themselves of and don't know of. It seems to me, though, that perhaps what we want most is to be able to trust ourselves, to trust our mental faculties in terms of what we observe with our eyes, our five senses overall. We'd like to be able to trust how we process that in terms of our thinking ability, logic-wise, and as per intuition, which is, some would say, a form of thinking that takes more of a snapshot very quickly of very complex matters, to be pondered more in detail later on if the situation permits. And that furthermore, when there's a conflict between what we perceive and think about, think up, if you will, based on what we had coming in from our five senses, that we give this priority over what someone else tells us. And I find that rather a challenge then for people, many people, including myself especially, years past, that when presented with a conflict between what we perceive and think up versus what someone else says, especially what they call an authority figure, those with some kind of oomph to themselves, some power, you might even say some form of leverage, whether a former parent, whether a boss, whether a person with credentials and claiming to be a trained expert, if we defer to them over what we perceive, especially in the people area, the values area, nothing especially concerning tangible skills like plumbing, electrical work, how to build and repair a car, or even various financial matters covered by certain financial and business life coaches, well, then it seems we can have a real struggle. We might then encounter phrases like, "You have trust issues if you don't trust what I say over what you believe, have observed, etc." Or there might be even more derogatory phrases like, "What you're perceiving and thinking is a delusion." Now, of course, there are things such as wishful thinking, I suppose, that you might call a delusion in and of itself, or a denial, or a lie we tell ourselves, as Christo has said out in California. But at any rate, I find it more fascinating to think of how our wishful thinking at times, normally corrected, I'd say, by feedback from our lives, if not impacted by other sources, is not a terrible problem for us. You might say we eventually come to our senses as to what we would wish when data from reality contradicts our wishes. Unless there are what I call marketers who would like to provide us more reinforcement of what we wish or deny, or lie to ourselves at times about. There might even be references to somebody being off their rocker, or, quote, bipolar, or, quote, manic, or, quote, narcissistic, or just, quote, plain full of it. I would tend to say that the more marketers there are, so to speak, out there, trying to push their ideas, their products, which can be one and the same thing, I think. And a product doesn't have to be a tangible thing like you call a widget, a car, clothing. It can be an idea marketed to us that sometimes is not really in line with reality, or only partly so, or is a package of part reality and part not. But at any rate, the more these marketers, so to speak, are out there pushing this, sometimes reinforcing occasional desires of us to have something quick and easy, call it wishful thinking, if you will, the more problems I think we're going to have. Sometimes we can't see just what's right in front of our face, as to, I believe, needing to step back, take a breather, and sort through the difference between what we perceive, yes, at times wishful thinking, but often not, if left to our own devices, our own senses. The problem being that most all of us these days are what you might say caught in a matrix, especially if in urban areas, and with associated stresses and high costs. And this matrix then keeps us, I would say, for lack of a better word, from evaluating between what we perceive with our senses, what we then think as per processing that, what we intuit as to intuition, and as opposed to what others are saying if they are marketing something especially to us. I use the market term loosely in terms of in lieu of former terms like propaganda. To me, that's an inadequate term and somewhat derogatory, and stirs up too many conjurings of maliciousness, as opposed to, you might say, in my view, someone marketing things for profit, or even to the extent that the profit is used for their drug of choice, or what have you, as not necessarily chemical based, but could involve matters like status seeking, control seeking, or lots of widgets to distract themselves with, highly expensive, highly complex, and ever changing. Thoughts to ponder, perhaps.